Welcome to the AutoSuccess Executive Spotlight. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today my guest is Dave Boyle from TraXtion. Welcome, Dave.
Welcome, Brian. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for coming to Akron.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I bet you never thought you were going to get a great sushi lunch in the middle of Ohio.
Well, it's probably a better chance of that than Dallas, Texas, where I'm from. It's nice to get here and get out of the 110-degree heat that we're having back at home, too. So it feels like a winter day up here for me today. So.
It is. It's a very nice day today in Akron.
It's gorgeous.
I didn't look at it's got to be 79 maybe?
Yeah, it feels wonderful, I got to tell you. We've had nothing but a heat wave for 2 months back home, so it feels great to be here. So.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and the career path that got you to where you are today with TraXtion.
Well, it wasn't a straight line, that's for sure. I had no actually intentions of doing this for a living. I actually, unless you read my bio, a lot of people don't know this, but I was actually a professional race car driver for 10 years. So I kind of started around the motorsports side of things and was involved in motorsports up in Canada. Did a lot of stuff with General Motors through motorsports and whatnot in Canada, and then got to a point in my life where I was 30 years old and I was like, okay, you know what? You're not good enough to make a real living at this, so go get a job. And I took the first job I could get, quite frankly, and ended up working for an automotive supplier. And I've been doing it ever since. This is my fourth company now that I've been involved in, and first one that I'm running myself, and loving that. But had a really great opportunity to work with some of the best people in this industry over my career and be involved in a lot of firsts. I was somebody asked me that question not that long ago, and the first company I was with, we did the very first CRM and maintenance reminder program in the industry. Back in the early 90s when we could barely use computers back in those days, and then moved on to do the first digital vehicle inspection platform. Was involved in that company before we sold it. And now I think, this is certainly one of the most interesting businesses I've been in, but TraXtion, formerly called Tire Profiles, we were the first company to sort of create an automated, digitized process to measure tire tread depth and alignments and try to help dealers sell more tires and more alignments. So been a career of firsts, which has been fun. I like that kind of stuff. I said to somebody the other day, I like selling things to car dealers that they don't know they need yet. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of gets me up in the morning and keeps me going. So,
cool. Well, tires are extremely important to a race car driver.
Yes, that is true.
That's probably one of the most important things, right?
That is true.
And a lot of your career has involved tires. Tires are very important to dealers, probably only getting more important to them. Why are tires so important today to car dealers and retention?
Well, because of that, basically, Ryan. They've never been important to dealers, which is why, if you look at the aftermarket tire industry, it's massive. Mm-hmm. And I tell dealers this all the time, if you want to see what you created, just keep your eyes open when you go to your dealership in the morning, because within a 5-mile radius around most car dealerships, you'll see a half a dozen tire shops. And I'm not kidding when I say the dealers created them. Because for the longest time, during the warranty booms, during the maintenance booms, during all of those periods that we've sort of ebbed and flowed through in this industry, dealers didn't need tires to be extremely profitable. And they are a low margin business. They're a messy business. They take up a lot of space in the parts department. I don't deny any of that when I talk to dealers. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason that for decades they've sort of pushed it aside. And there's been a lot of good business operators that happy to pick up that business and take it. Because one of the things that they realized is that the tire is one of those consumables that the customer needs that is linked to a lot of other repairs. We've talked about this for years. You take the wheel off, you get to see the brakes. There's a lot of other work that can get done when you start to work on wheels and tires. And it's only been, though, in the last probably decade where the data has really started to come to the forefront that is, for the first time ever, there's hard evidence now that defection for tires is the tip of the spear. Mm-hmm. The retention or lack thereof, issue that all dealers face and struggle with and have been struggling with for as long as I've been in this industry. The data now suggests that all starts when the customer needs the first set of tires. There's some interesting data that the industry has tracked forever in terms of service retention, and they have for years sort of tied service retention or defection to the end of the vehicle warranty. When customers realize that they don't need to go to the dealership anymore because the factory's not paying for it. Well, interesting thing has happened over the years is that as the quality's improved, they don't need to get a lot of these repairs done anywhere, but yet they're still defecting. And so why are they defecting? And what we started to realize is that the first tire replacement just coincidentally happens to coincide in most cases with the end of the warranty in that 30 to 40,000 mile range when the bumper to bumper warranty ends. And we believe, and I think the data supports, and dealers are starting to believe that that's the real trigger for this. It's not the end of the warranty at all. It's, the first time the consumer has to reach in their pocket and spend real money. And in case of the newer cars today, a set of tires can be well over $1,000 on certain vehicles. The first time that they've got to, dig deep into their pockets and spend any real money, they're looking around and they don't see the dealer as the tire shop. And that's primarily the dealer's fault. The dealer for decades has said, no, go, we'll do everything else. Just go take it down the street to get the tires put on. We don't specialize in tires. So they've lost the business. Getting it back is going to be really, really hard, which is why we created this company, because we feel that we need to help dealers sort of resell themselves as the tire guy for the consumer.
Well, and how do they do that? Like what would you tell a dealer who says, okay, my retention is no good and I want it to be good, and you're right, I've got half a dozen tire stores right at my doorstep. What can I do to right my ship?
Well, it's about education. It starts with them talking tires with the customer whenever they get a chance to have a conversation about anything. The dealers and this industry in general, we're really good about talking about things when there's opportunity for us to make money. And what I mean by that is inspection system, vehicle inspection systems have been around forever, and they come with colors, right? It's green, then it goes yellow, and then it goes red, right? There was a design in that thought process, and that was tell them it's green, tell them it's green, tell them it's yellow, and then tell them it's red. And there's no shock to the whole process, no matter what it is, whether it's a tire, whether it's brakes, whatever. Dealers have traditionally been very bad at that. They wait until there's an opportunity for them to make some money, which is when it gets red, before they mention it. And one of the things that we try to train and push with our product is you have to start talking about tires when you deliver the car. You have to start talking about tires on that first service visit, on that second service visit, on that third service visit. So what we wanted to do with our TreadSpec product was create a process using our tools and our technology that put the measurement of the tire forefront in the service drive. We don't want this to be part of the vehicle inspection. We don't want the technician necessarily to look at the tire because in many cases they're not going to. The other thing that dealers have to realize is that their own internal processes are part of the challenge, right? I ask dealers this all the time. What's a technician's motivation for failing a tire? You think about the mindset of a technician. You got a master tech that's got a car in for some repair and is also doing a multi-point on it. What's his motivation, his or her motivation for failing a tire? They don't want to do the tire. They don't make any money on the tire. There's a good chance that they're not even going to get a chance to do the tire. It's going to go to some hourly tech that's going to put the tires on. So their motivation, most people in our world today, and certainly people in car dealerships with the pay plans that we put in place, are motivated by their compensation plans. The compensation plans that are put in place in dealers for technicians with flat rate and service advisors are in as many ways anti-tire. They really are not focused on it doesn't create a focus on them. So there isn't a motivation necessarily for them to the technician to fail a tire, for the service advisor to recommend a tire. So our model when we started this company was to create a completely different process. We're going to measure the tire using technology for the dealership staff. We wanted to sort of create the easy button, if you will, from Staples, the easy button. We wanted to create the easy button for tires, right? We wanted to do the measuring part for them. And then we also want to start the presentation part for them. So our product not only measures the tire, but through our plate capture and VIN capture of the vehicle and our DMS integrations, we're able to then take that information on the vehicle and not only give it to the service advisor, but we send it directly to the consumer via text message.
Oh, wow.
And all of this happens within 10 or 15 seconds after they arrive at the dealership. So they drive in, they drive over, and within seconds, the consumer has a text message on their phone. And what we're doing there is helping educate the consumer, but we're also trying to make this process more transparent so the consumer feels empowered, in this process. But in many ways, we're also forcing the people in the dealership to do what they should be doing, which is to be talking about tires on every visit, even when they're green. Talk about when they're green, talk about when they're yellow. And if we do that on every customer, the chances of them, at least engaging us in the process, they may still shop around, but at least engaging the dealer in the process when they get to that 40,000 mile mark and need to have their tires replaced, your chances go up exponentially if the first time you mention a tire isn't at 40,000 miles.
Yeah.
So it is sort of repetition and education of the consumer, be constantly talking tires, let them know over and over and over again every time we see them. And if you think about it, I know this is a long answer to your question, but if you think about it, dealerships have a distinct advantage over the aftermarket in this space, right? Because there's a period of ownership where they own the customer, right? There's that 2 or 3 year period where they're coming back to the dealership for everything because everything is still under warranty. They're getting their first couple of oil changes done at the dealership. So we've got that period where the defection hasn't started yet. That's the period, that's that moment of truth where we have to continue to pound onto the customer. Hey, when you need tires, we're your tire shop.
Well, it sounds like, if you're sending them a text message, kind of the green, yellow, red, the first time that I drive my new car and everything's green. And then the next time everything's green. And then the next time maybe I've got a couple yellows. So, most customers all drop off their car at the same time and they all want to pick up their car at the same time. And it seems like the real breakdown is the service writer who just simply can't talk to all those people and give them. You can tell him what he's supposed to do, but when you've got 9 people in front of you and the phone is ringing, so if you're actually using technology to help to make sure that the process is followed every time.
Absolutely. Listen, the service advisor is the toughest job in the dealership.
Oh, I agree.
Without
100%.
a doubt.
Yep.
Toughest job in the dealership. I say to dealers, even a service manager, when was the last time you actually wrote a ticket? But I don't think there's too many dealers that have ever written service, and they probably wouldn't want to. It's a tough job. And one of the things that I think too many companies in the technology space, companies that we compete with, and other companies that are in that space, we got to remember that if the technology or the product that we're trying to put in a dealership isn't first and foremost making people's lives easier, then why are we doing it?
Yeah.
Right. And I remember when I was involved in the multi-point inspection company back in the day. We built one of the most robust, one of the best multi-point inspection companies out there. Too good, quite frankly, Brian. Nobody used it because it was too hard. It was too complicated. It was too labor intensive. And we realized towards the end that we had gone down a path we shouldn't have gone down, and we started simplifying things. And when we started this company, that was one of the very first things I told my team was, what, guys, this has to be easy. We have to make people's lives easier. And, one of the things that we get when we talk to dealers, and I still love to go out and, I was the first salesman of the company, and I still love to go out and talk to prospects often. It's what I like to do. And I often just, you'll get that service manager that just doesn't want to spend the money for a product like ours. And so I'm just going to get my guys to start sticking tires in a service drive. Listen, dealerships haven't been able to get service advisors to stick tires in a service drive for 100 years.
Yep.
It's not going to magically, you're not going to say, here's a stick gauge, go do it. There's a reason for it, right? Everybody comes in first thing in the morning, right? You got cars lined up, everybody. The goal is to get them written up, get them in a loaner, or get them in a rental, get them in a van, and get them out of there, right? That's the motivation. We've been trying to change that forever in this industry, and it's just the nature of the beast, right? The majority of them come in the morning, and the service advisor's got a lot to do. He's got a lot of stuff to do, and trying to stick a tire is one thing that's going to fall by the wayside. Not to mention the fact that on today's cars, the actual physical act of trying to stick a tire is almost impossible. I mean, you can do the front tires by turning the wheel, but to get a tire and stick a tire on the inside tread of the rear tire, you almost got to lay down on the ground. So now we got service advisors in white shirts and ties, we got them laying down on the ground. I mean, it's a process that's never going to work. Yep. And the industry needs to realize that, sometimes you just need to take a step back and do things differently, which is what we tried to do with this product and this company, and one of the reasons how we think we've been successful.
Let's talk about EVs for a second.
My favorite topic, by the way.
Oh, you can't talk about the car business without talking about EVs.
You can't talk about tires and not talk about EVs.
That's true.
A lot.
I'd like to talk about retention, and then I'd like to talk about the changing RO. But let's start with retention. Mm-hmm. How vital will tires be to retention in an EV world?
Well, obviously I'm biased in this answer, but I'm going to say they're going to be the absolute pinnacle of it, and I'll tell you why. One of the things that nobody's talking about right now in our world is, so we have this culture in our industry where we sell a car and then we have mechanisms to get the customer to come back in for service, maintenance reminders, maintenance schedules, services and maintenance and whatnot. And that goal is to continue to establish that relationship, right? And keep the customer coming back, because if we can keep them coming back long enough, we'll solidify that relationship and have a better chance of selling another car. It all works in theory, and it has worked for years for these guys. There's a problem, though, that's on the horizon with EVs they don't realize, is that if you looked at every maintenance package on every car, I don't care what it is, whether it's a Honda, whether it's a Ford, the trigger or the base operation in every maintenance package is an oil change. It starts with an oil change, and then it's an oil change and a tire rotation. It's an oil change, a tire rotation, and a cabin air filter. It's an oil change, tire rotation, inspect brakes, replace fuel filter. But they all start with an oil change. The trigger has been the oil change for the 5,000 mile, 10,000 mile, whatever the schedule is for that vehicle, has been the trigger for that visit for, since the beginning of maintenance.
Yeah.
And what happens when that's gone? What's the trigger?
A broken car, right? I mean,
no, the trigger needs to be, quite frankly, the tire rotation. Mm-hmm. That's the trigger. The trigger needs a tire inspection and a tire rotation, because one of the things that, and it's not just EVs, by the way. I mean, Hondas are, I was talking with a guy the other day. Honda CR-V is one of the best-selling small crossover vehicles in the industry. A Honda CR-V, you'd be lucky if you get 18 to 20,000 miles on a set of tires if you don't rotate them. They've got an inherent wear problem with those vehicles. Honda knows it, and rotations have become really critical, more critical, quite frankly, today than they ever have been. But tire maintenance in general, which we believe requires a process to regularly inspect, so that your tires don't get sideways on you. So if you do hit a little curb and you knock your alignment out a little bit, you're getting that alignment fixed before you completely mess that tire up, and then it needs to be replaced because it's worn so poorly on one side or inside or the outside or whatever. So, we believe that something central around a tire is key to this. And oh, by the way, the data on EVs and tires is not good. I mean, it's not good. I mean, it's good for the tire industry, but it's not good for the consumer. The life expectancy of a tire on an EV is about half of what it is on an ICE vehicle. And its weight, its torque, it's the way the suspension systems work on those cars to give them a decent ride, because they're so heavy and they're bottom heavy with those batteries in them. They're just really hard on tires. And that's some interesting data that I don't want to misquote myself, so I won't, but if anybody's ever interested, they can reach out. I'm happy to share this. As interesting data that Tesla put out a couple of years ago on tire wear, long-term tire wear on cars. They know it. They know it's a problem. All the EVs know it's a problem, and that's why quietly behind the scenes, Tesla and others are working with Continental and Goodyear and the different tire manufacturers, trying to come up with different tires and different compounds, try to make them last longer. Problem is, you make a tire harder to make it last longer, and then all of a sudden your ride quality goes away. So the tire manufacturers have a challenge in front of them, and I'm sure they'll solve it at some point.
Yeah.
But tire health and maintaining the tire, we believe, from the consumer's perspective, because of the cost. If you think about the electric vehicle, the only really maintenance you're going to have on it is tires, brakes, wiper blades, air conditioning services and things like that, because they still have those parts in them, like an ICE engine.
Cabin air filters.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly. But no more oil changes, no more spark plugs, no more tune-ups, no more transmission services in many cases. I mean, it's I talked to a really good friend of mine who's in the chemical business not that long ago, and he was telling me that there's going to be a huge shift from some of that stuff to more of the cleaning and the maintenance and the beautification side of it. The polishes and the cleaning and all that kind of stuff for dealers. That's going to be their replacement focus to a lot of these fluid exchanges that get done. So it's please don't ask me if EVs are coming and how fast, because I don't have that crystal ball.
Yeah.
I'm one of the people that think that they're going to come, but they're not going to come near as fast as the news and the media would tell us that they are. But they are coming. We can't stop that. What we can do is to all dealers and companies such as ours, we can try to help them maximize what opportunity comes out of that. Every time there's a change in this industry, opportunity has come from it, and there'll be huge opportunity for dealers with EVs, I believe, and this is one of them. But they need to get in the tire business today because that's going to be a big part of their portfolio in the future with EVs is tires.
You kind of touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to talk about an RO. I mean, you don't have to look in the crystal ball, like not 10 years or 15 years in the future, but just 5 years from now. I mean, what do you think an RO is going to look like, and how are the ROs going to be different 5 years from now than what we see today? Like, how much effect does that EV have on it?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot more warranty work, there's some strong data that suggests that we're about to see. If you look at the cyclical nature of our industry, right? I mean, when I first started in this industry in the late 80s, early 90s, dealers were still enjoying all that warranty work, right? And our work mix was 80-20, 80 warranty, 20 customer pay, and we've done a complete reversal, right? Which was good.
Yeah.
And now it's mostly customer pay and a lot less warranty. And I think you're going to see that snap back. As these vehicles are still trying to find themselves in the industry, there's going to be a lot of problems with them. There's going to be a lot of things that the car companies, the manufacturers are going to have to step up and back. Batteries is one of them.
Oh, yeah.
So I think you're going to see warranty work go up. And then I think you're going to see the definition of maintenance change. It's going to change. The maintenance is now going to be the very skinny sliver of wear items. Tires, brakes, wiper blades, cleaning products, I think, offering beautification, customizing vehicles, all of these things. I mean, I could go on for an hour, I won't, but there's so much opportunity for dealers, which is why I love this business. I mentioned that I tell dealers to look around them when they drive into their stores looking for tire shops. Just look around your dealership for anything that's automotive related. Outside of gas, anything that's automotive related, they're all over the place. Yeah. And that's all stuff that the dealers could do. Window tinting, stripes, these wraps that you're seeing on cars nowadays, right? That's one of the hottest things out there. Wheels, painting wheels. Taking those wheels and those new diamond cut wheels that are out there that are polished and painted and all that kind of stuff. I mean, somebody gave me a data point not that long ago about the number of vehicles, and I think it was Ford, but the number of vehicles that leave with the stock wheel in some fashion. It's a small number.
Really?
Everybody's customizing their wheels now. It's these cars all look the same. Right?
Yeah.
And it's the one way that you can create something unique and distinctive for yourself, right? I can take a car and I can black it out and I can put black wheels on it. Cadillac, and it wasn't Ford, it was Cadillac. I was wrong. This was a friend of mine who was a Cadillac dealership, and they don't sell an Escalade without turning the wheels black. Every Escalade gets black wheels pretty much because everybody wants black wheels on their Escalade.
Yeah.
No matter what the color it is, they want black wheels on their Escalade. You would think the manufacturers would put black wheels on it from the factory, but they've left that for the dealers. But the dealers outsource that stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, they could do that. They could do that in their building and make more money at it.
Oh, absolutely.
But they don't. So the opportunity and what's the RO makeup, I think, is just going to be vastly different. But I'm one of the people that believe that the opportunity to generate big revenue out of your service department is never going to be as powerful as it ever has been, probably in the next decade, if dealers just expand their thinking a little bit and try to be all things automotive, all things transportation, as opposed to just dealers that sell cars and do a fairly narrow definition of repair and service.
What about the technicians? I mean, for all these new services, all these new things that a dealer can do, you need somebody to turn the wrench, you need somebody to black out the wheel. And right now, it's not just dealers. I mean, it seems like every business in our country is having trouble finding people, especially dealerships and technicians. What can a dealer do to attract and retain the technicians that he finds?
Wow, another one of these questions that I could talk for an hour on. But look, there's a technician shortage out there. Yeah. Okay, I'm not going to deny that. Part of it, though, I believe is the problem that's created from it in some ways is self-induced with the dealers, and that is that we have this mentality is that we're going to bring a guy in and we're going to hire him, as a lube tech, and we're going to get him certified in every discipline as we can, as fast as we can, because the factories push us to do that. And want to give the guy a career path because he wants to make more money, and those are all wonderful things. The problem is that you end up with a shop full of, $35 an hour A-level technicians, and that doesn't necessarily match up with the work mix of the future, right? You are going to need those guys, and you're probably going to need those guys that are even more capable. With some of the things that are on the, some of the ADAS systems now that are on cars that are going to need to be repaired. Just the tools alone that are out there that have to be used by the technicians are so advanced. They're just advanced pieces of technology to fix things like ADAS and whatnot. You're going to need to have, technicians that are probably, in terms of technology-wise, more capable than we've ever had. But then on the other side of that coin, if you believe what I said earlier in terms of what that work mix looks like, now you've got the tires and the wiper blades and the air conditioning work and all that kind of stuff where you need lower level technicians to be able to do that type of work. We have got to figure out a way to make those jobs profitable to the point where a technician can career path in that type of work and still be good. We don't have to make every technician a $30 an hour, a technician that can do nothing but diagnostic work, or we don't make any money. We don't need that. And the evidence of that is in the aftermarket. There are guys that work in these aftermarket shops, and I have called on aftermarket shops as well because we've got products that service both industries, as you know. When I talk to I go into these shops as guys that have been here for 20 years, 30 years, whatever. I mean, there are guys that make their living doing tires and oil changes and brake jobs for 20 years. But yet in the dealer world, we think that everybody, needs to graduate to be a master technician and do electronic diagnostics at $35 an hour. So we've got to change that mindset too. I'm not saying that's going to solve the technician shortage because we're still going to need those high-press technicians. But if we take a look at the work mix and we start to focus more on some of those lower-end technicians that we need to do that maintenance work, because that's where a lot of the work is going, and one of the things that dealers can do, I believe, I hope none of my aftermarket customers are watching this, but one of the things that I think dealers can do is I think they can go after those bodies, quite frankly. The dealers offer a way better job and a way better career for these guys. The uniform allowances, lunchroom, showers, just a better work environment, healthcare. I mean, dealers can offer a better work environment than many of the aftermarket shops, not all of them, but many of the aftermarket shops can. And if these aftermarket guys have got guys that are, willing to spend 15, 20 years of their life changing tires, get them to do it at a car dealership where they can make maybe a bit more money, but have a lot better working conditions. So, one of the things I tell dealers all the time is, that's your recruiting ground right there. Find the technicians that you need first to fill some of those lower end jobs. And then go, you got a target-rich environment out there in the aftermarket. Go steal some technicians from some of those guys and give them a better career opportunity working for you.
Well, and they don't have to drive very far to find those places, right?
Within 5 miles, typically.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Good catch. Within 5 miles. Some cases right across the street, you can walk it. But absolutely, yeah. Use your technicians as a recruiting arm for this. I mean, one of the things I had this conversation with the dealer. I was at a service manager, a friend of mine, it's probably 6 months ago now. We were at lunch and we went to a place right across the street from the dealership. And when we walked in to have lunch, there was 3 or 4 of his technicians in there, one of his service advisors, because it's a walkable place from the dealership. There was also a Discount Tire down the street. There was 2 guys in there from Discount Tire. I mean, it was a place where they all went. And he was bemoaning, trying to find some techs. And I said, man, have you ever thought about, putting a recruiting bonus in there for your current technicians? Give them credit, give them business cards. None of them get them. Give them a business card, and when they're at lunch and they see the guy from Discount Tire, have them drop a business card off and say, hey, look, we're hiring, and pay the tech $500 if the guy gets hired or whatever. And so there's lots of things that they could do if they thought outside the box and sort of thought like a real business. Then they could again. I'm not trying to downplay the issue here. The technician shortage is real. Labor shortage in general is real. But there are some things that dealers can do relatively quickly to make it better. It's not going to go away. It's not going to be perfect overnight, obviously, but they can make it better.
Well, I kind of want to shift gears a minute.
Okay.
I want to ask you a question about your business.
Okay.
Traditionally, almost everything that you buy for your service department, you buy it, you own it, you install it, and you have it for a long time.
Yep.
You took a different approach.
We did.
You took a SaaS model, software as a service, to where the dealer doesn't own the equipment. The dealer pays for the software. What inspired you to kind of go against the grain there?
Well, it was more than one thing.
Yeah.
I hope it's okay if I say this, but one of our biggest competitor, really our only competitor in this space, is Hunter. Hunter Engineering, great company. They kind of jumped into the space after we did. They've got a good product, great product actually, just extremely expensive. 3 times as expensive as our product when we were selling ours in the old equipment model. And it really started to hurt our business. Everybody just assumed that, that this was the direction that these types of products were going, that they were $100,000 a lane. And that's the direction they were going, and started to hurt our business. And we, a bit of it was self-preservation. We were, Hunter's a bigger company, and we decided that we didn't want to necessarily compete with them head to head. So we wanted to find a different avenue. And the other piece of it was just quite frankly born out of our customers making bad decisions when it came to purchasing our product. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. There's the typical car dealership has 2, sometimes 3 service lanes, sometimes more than that. There's a few that have 1, but most of them have more than 1 inbound lane. And traffic in the morning in particular is going in both inbound lanes. If you're buying, the Hunter product as an example, and it's $100,000, even our old product when it was $50,000, many of them would say, because again, the technology at the time was relatively new, they would say, well, let's just put 1 in and I'll try it. The problem with that is that you're not going to get a good trial from it, because tires is a numbers game, right? Not everybody's going to need tires. In fact, on average, about 6 to 10% of the cars that you're going to see on a given day are going to need tires. But what happens if the 6 to 10%, so 3 or 4 cars a day that need tires, go in the lane that you didn't want to spend the money on and doesn't have the equipment in it? Well, those customers don't get the treatment that you want, and you don't get the opportunity probably to sell the tire or the alignment because, you only put 1 in. We saw this as a huge problem. We were out there talking about how much money dealers could make. And in many cases, we would have to take our business case and cut it in half or cut it by a third if they only put 1 lane in. And so I sat down with my board of advisors and I said, look, this space is, I believe in it passionately. I believe there's a bigger thing at play here with tires for dealers. But if this space goes to where it prices itself out of the reach of a lot of dealers to do it right, then we've made a mistake. We got to figure out a way to do this in a more affordable fashion. So I got to tell you something. The best thing that I've got going for me in this business is I have the best team of people in the industry, back in Dallas. Got some some of the smartest people I've worked with in my entire career, 30+ year career. And I sat them all down one day and I said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to try to do this different. And step one is we got to reinvent our technology to make it cheaper to make. And I want to do this because I want to copy the model that the fluid guys do. I want to be able to say, hey, if you buy my transmission fluid chemical, I'll give you the machine to do it. And I said they all looked at me like I was nuts. They said, what do you mean? We're going to make this stuff and we're going to give it away? And I said, absolutely. We're going to make this stuff and we're going to give it away. And we're going to charge them for our software, which, by the way, is where we spend 99% of our effort anyway, is on the software. Because our system is very software forward compared to our competitors. The text messaging, the reporting, the integration with the DMSs, much deeper than any of our competitors. Our product is very software forward. We have got a predictive engine that can predict when tires are going to wear out. We've got a lot of stuff that our competitors don't offer that's all software based. And when we were selling it as equipment, we weren't necessarily getting paid for that software. So we came up with this idea that says, let's give the hardware away, like they do in the chemical business, and let's charge them, in this case, not for the chemicals, obviously, but let's charge them for the software. Mm-hmm. And the net result is our sales have gone through the roof. Brian, we've never had a better couple of years than we've had the last couple of years. We've been doing this for about 1.5 years now, 2 years. And the idea of don't buy it, don't own it, because something new is going to come out, which is the other motivation. Something new is going to come out. Don't buy it, don't own it. But do something that's got an operational expense, X amount a month, that you can directly correlate to revenue and calculate a return on investment, as opposed to trying to figure out, well, how am I going to pay for this? If it's, let's say I've got a 3 inbound lane, I buy 300 systems, that's probably $400,000 by the time I get them installed. I'm going to amortize that over probably a decade, right? So what's that technology look like 10 years from now? It's not going to work, I'll tell you that. And how do I calculate a return on investment easily on that over that long-term investment in that product, especially if it stops working at some point? We wanted to be able to have a one-to-one where these guys could say, look, I spend $2,000 a month and I made $23,000 a month. That's the return on investment. That makes me very, very happy and smile.
Yeah.
So we wanted to come up with something that was in that $2,000 to $2,500 a month range, which is where we're at. And for that, we've taken the decision of how many lanes and how much hardware out of there. It's not, they don't have to make a decision on that. We go in, we look at their service drive. If there's 3 inbound lanes, we loan them three units. If there's 2, we loan them 2. If there's 5, we loan them 5. I mean, we give them enough equipment to be able to cover the service drive properly, and then they pay monthly software fees for those units. And so far, it seems to be working and resonating very well. So it's been a good move for our business. But I'm hoping that the industry reacts to this down the road as just a good move for the industry, because I do believe in this technology and what it can do for the industry and for dealers. And I was very, very worried the direction it was taking. These things were getting really cool, really fancy, really complicated, which ours is as well. Not complicated, but very, very tech savvy, but they were exponentially getting more expensive along the way, and pricing many, many dealers completely out of the game as a result. So, when we started the business, I wanted to be able to put one in every service drive, and that's still my mission.
One of the things that I do with all the people I give tours to our building that aren't from the automotive space, that like people don't work in a car dealership, right, or don't work with car dealerships. People that don't know what a tread depth analyzer is, when you explain what it actually does, it's just like, wow. I mean, I might as well be showing them Star Trek. Yeah. They're like, wait, what? It does all that? And it is a pretty neat technology, no matter who you get it from. It's kind of phenomenal.
It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my career. I mean, we're trying to measure a tread depth on a moving tire accurately to within 1/10 of a millimeter, which is way more accurate than you can get with any stick gauge out there. And we're doing it on all 4 tires in milliseconds on a moving car that's going, 5 to 10 miles an hour. So It's taken us, we've been in the business longer than anybody. We've been at this 13 plus years now. And it's taken us a long time to perfect it because it is that difficult. One of the things that got my investor group interested in this was when I showed them and I explained how complicated it was. And one of the investors says, well, that makes a nice, big, steep barrier to entry. So we like those kinds of businesses. And it's true. I mean, for as long as we've been at this, there really is only, there's us and Hunter, and there's a couple of other companies that sort of dabble in it. But, we're the two big guys in it. And it's hard. It's complicated. But I think it's, again, I'm biased, but I personally believe it's one of those things that as we continue to push this thing and this industry continues to change in our favor, this is going to be one of these things where guys are going to realize it's a necessary tool at some point. I can't operate my business without it, and that's sort of what we're hoping for, obviously. So,
nice. Well, Dave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience today?
No, there was one thing we talked about this before, and there was one thing that I haven't mentioned yet. We've all dealers, we go through ebbs and flows, right? And this last couple of years with COVID and with the chip shortages and all that stuff, and we go from having no cars to sell to focusing on service and having then having lots, then getting cars back, and now we've lost focus on service because now we got a bunch of cars to sell again. I really would hope that at some point dealers are just going to forget about all of that and just keep their focus on their service departments. I think that the turmoil that creates these challenges in the business is only going to continue to be choppy. EVs are going to make it choppy. Nobody's talking about this pending UAW strike. I mean, there's a really good likelihood that there's a lot of car manufacturers that, next January and February aren't going to have any cars to sell again. It's going to be chip shortage, 2.0, and there's going to be no cars to sell again. And they're going to be clamoring for their service vendors, to help them grow their service departments again. And if I could give one message to every car dealer, I would say, make your service department your primary business. Make selling cars the secondary piece of the business. And I know that everybody that just heard me say that is laughing, thinking, well, he's crazy, because that we're never going to convince dealers of that. And that may be true, but I keep saying it. Eventually somebody's going to listen to me. I'm just waiting for that first dealer principal to move his office from upstairs in the corner to down onto the service drive so he can actually be where the real heart and soul of his business is. I'm waiting for one to do that. And if there's anybody out there that does that, please send me an email, because I would love to come and see that operation, because I believe that the guy whose name is on the side of the building, if he put himself right in the middle of that, like I said, the heart and soul of his business, that's a dealership that I would want to not only do business with, but I would want to figure out how to invest in, because to me, that's going to be one of the best run dealerships in the country, maybe the world.
Well, and if the direct sale model ever gets legs, that might be where every dealer has their office. Right?
I don't think we have enough time to broach that subject, Brian. But,
we'll save that for the next time.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for coming, Dave.
Thanks, man. This was fun. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me in Akron.
Hey, I loved having you here. Lunch was great. Interview was great.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time to join us for this AutoSuccess Executive Spotlight. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today, my guest has been Dave Boyles from TraXtion. We hope to see you again soon for another episode. This one's Over the Curb and Burning Gas.